I've had to start over many times, and you were there for some of those moments, like that time we moved from home to Vancouver, from Vancouver. We're in our new home, and we're going to unbox some wonderful things that we ordered for our home because this is super exciting.
Like a sponge. This sponge gently exfoliates dead skin cells. How do you think she stays so beautiful?
Back to home of Ontario, from one living situation into another, to getting a puppy and having to rethink and adjust our entire lives. Oh, look at how small he is. From hating my job to getting fired and taking it as an opportunity to start over. I find myself in this balancing act now of being in an office job part-time and having little jobs that barely make ends meet, but also feeling incredibly free. And now it seems like I'm being revisited by this concept of starting over, but this time in my art practice. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for being here. Quick example, we have this song that is already on all streaming platforms. It's called Swim With Me, and there's this part that I struggle with where I'm slightly off key. So I took some time to be sad about it, and then the next day I decided that I'm going to try and I'm going to do it better because I can be scared about singing the thing each time, or I can slowly go towards it and kind of make friends with the damn thing. I am not a keyboard connoisseur, but I am a little bit familiar with the idea of notes on the piano. And I find that with the keyboard, I'm able to kind of get on pitch instead of this like willy-nilly like brah of a guitar. And so yeah, this kind of helps me to just like get the right note. I wrote down all of the chords of the places that I am struggling with, and I'm just kind of going over them on the keyboard now. The challenge is both learning the chords in sequence, one after the other, and also singing. So, in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron says this about perfectionism. To the perfectionist, there is always room for improvement. The perfectionist calls this humility. In reality, it is egotism. It is pride that makes us want to write a perfect script, paint a perfect painting, perform a perfect audition monologue. Perfectionism is not a quest for the best. It is a pursuit of the worst in ourselves, the part that tells us that nothing we do will ever be good enough, that we should try again. No, we should not. A painting is never finished. It simply stops in interesting places, says Paul Gardner. A book is never finished, but at a certain point, you stop writing it and go on to the next thing. That is a normal part of creativity, letting go. We always do the best that we can by the light we have to see by. End quote. And for a really long time, I've been focusing on how it needs to sound perfect. But this time around, I'm playing this and practicing this because when I hit the note, there's a feeling that comes with it. So sad, C minor 7. Told about. It's kind of like when there's a swell or a build-up in a song and you're like, yeah. So I'm doing it just to feel it and not trying to achieve a certain kind of perfect result. Now, Brendan 10 years ago started making jewelry out of guitar strings, and he sold them at different markets and festivals, and we kind of are wanting to resurrect this idea. So we're working on launching a website for him, and to do this, we gotta take some photos, we gotta take some videos, we gotta get a social media campaign going. So Sometimes ideas need to kind of incubate or stay dormant for a little bit before they come out of the oven, so to speak. Yeah. Last year in June, I signed a lease to be a part of an art studio with the intention of making things. And we live in a sort of semi-suburban area, and this studio was pretty inconvenient to get to. And so that meant that I had to, first of all, plan when I was going to go and then actually make my way there. And I feel like maybe if we lived in a small apartment space where I needed more space to make things, or if we lived maybe a little bit closer, I would have used it. But I found myself planning to go and then not actually going. And then there came a time a couple of months later where I realized that I was spending $245 a month on a space that I wasn't using, and I felt really shitty. I felt shitty because I was wasting money that I honestly didn't have, and that I was taking up space to store my shit when someone else could be using this space who was actually like actively doing things. Because I was at that time in a stage where I was just still kind of like, I still didn't even know what I was doing. And I think it's okay to, have that space to experiment, but like I wasn't even experimenting. And so with that being said, a couple months later, I decided to sublease it to someone. And when this happened, I felt this sense of like discouragement, but also this huge sense of relief. This experience made me realize that like I don't need to have a studio space to be an artist. We don't need fancy equipment to be an artist. We can be artists in the incomplete state, in the in-between state, and in the undecided state. So we ended up moving everything out and into the basement, and I had a temporary setup for creating, but we very recently ended up starting over again, moving things around and making more room to play. So, just to fill you in, we moved everything that was music related from in this room to in that room. This is gonna be like the art space, like making fucking things with your hands. And then that's gonna be making sounds, baby. So I have this side of the room to make my things. Brendan has that side of the room to make his things. So let's make it cute, let's make it quaint. Excuse me, I just chugged a Minute Maid juice box, so I haven't done that since grade 9. It would be great to just go down into our cool basement and make some candles. I just saw someone's post on Instagram. I was like deep dive creeping them. You know when you do that sometimes? I don't know, like I was kind of reminded to dig a little bit deeper in the making process and in the art process. And so I've been making candles and kind of just like the fragrances that I have been choosing have been really just like, oh, I guess I like that smell. Yeah, that smell. But I'm really trying to now think about the fragrances and the smells from childhood. And I wanted to leave you with one last quote from The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. He says, "The beginner's mind is one of the most difficult states of being to dwell in for an artist, precisely because it involves letting go of what our experiences have taught us. Not only am I experimenting and, starting over again and again, but I'm also bringing with me this mindset of being a beginner. And it's kind of helping me to have some compassion for when things get frustrating. There's so much to learn." And if you're super into what we do over here, you can join us on our Patreon. We post behind the scenes stuff and footage over there. Recently, I posted all of the photos, good, the bad, the blurry, from Brendan's photo shoot that you saw earlier. We have a podcast, which is mainly hosted by me. Sometimes Brendan comes on. I'd like to thank you for just being here, for existing, and I will see you soon. Bye.